Welcome to Great Loop Lifestyle. I'm Kim Russo with America's Great Loop Cruisers Association, and this is the Paducah, Kentucky edition. Paducah is a great example of the if you build it, they will come theory. They built their transient boat dock, I'd say 5 or 6 years ago, and since then they have made the best of the loop list in 3 different categories. So we arrived there on a pretty windy day. The dock was already pretty full. They can hold, I'd say, 12 to 14 looper boats. They do have fuel there. We arrived the day after their Barbecue on the River festival had been going on, and that has been named one of the top festivals on the Great Loop. So we missed that by just a day, and that was partly because we could not get reservations at Paducah during the festival. So unfortunately, we missed out on that. But we did partake in what is one of the best museums on the Great Loop, and that is the National Quilt Museum, which is here in Paducah. I know you're probably thinking, if you're not a quilter, that this does not sound super interesting, but as you can see from these pictures, some really stunning pieces of artwork there in the Quilt Museum. All of these are quilts. All of this is basically art on fabric, and they had a civil rights exhibit there where they had women from the civil rights movement who had made a difference, and they had coats that were quilted with some of the details of how those women helped with the movement. Also in Paducah, they are very flood prone there. So this is the wall-to-wall Paducah area where they have built a wall to protect the city from the flooding, and you can see how high those floodwaters have come historically. And as recently as 2011, there was a record flood at 55 feet, and in 2018, 2019, you can see that there's been some very recent high water there. But to beautify the wall that they've built around the city to protect themselves from the flooding, they have painted murals depicting the city's history. And it's some really beautiful visuals, but also some text that goes along with it that you can really learn more about the city. So definitely check that out. The Carson Center is a performing arts center, and as you're kind of strolling through this area, looking at the wall, you can check that out. There's also an area with a train engine and some cars there, and the parts of the mural there and the descriptions all depict the history of the railroad and how it impacted Paducah. There's also a market museum, and this was unfortunately closed while we were there, but it has some great reviews, and other loopers have talked about really enjoying that museum, and it's in a beautiful spot in town. Doze Place was also named as one of the top meals on the Great Loop for their filet mignon. So it's in that picture, the blue umbrellas are Doze Place, and there's a really interesting story that goes along with Doze. And yes, the filet mignon was magnificent, but the story, which I did not know when I got there, is that Doze was actually started in Greenville, Mississippi. Back during Prohibition, actually, they did some bootlegging, apparently, and was how they got the business restarted after a flood. But the famous steaks actually began because during segregation, remember this is the segregated South during that time, and they had actually established a honky-tonk to serve the black community during segregation. And some of the more prominent members of town started coming in through the back to get some of this fabulous steak. And that became the Eat Place, while the honky-tonk was serving the black community in the front. And eventually the Eat Place took over. Of course, segregation ended, and now it is well known for their steaks. So definitely check out Doze Place. It was named one of the best meals on the Great Loop. Continuing on, right near Doze it's on Broadway. That's where all of your little shops are. There's a creamery. There's an old-time movie theater, complete with a mannequin sitting there in the ticket booth. And you'll find just all kinds of neat little shops as you walk along on Broadway. So that's a brief look at Paducah. Great place for a few days stop. If you are interested in what happens after Paducah, we're going to be continuing on our next leg in our Great Loop Cruising Info series. Will take us from Paducah to Green Turtle Bay. Thanks for watching.